which brings me to my next point about, it's clear that the Raptors draft strategy, especially as they've been picking late in all these years under Masai, except for the Pirtle pick, which they got in the Bargnani trade, they have a very interesting approach. I was reading this once about how they're not taking the one-and-done guys. They're taking guys that have had at least 2 to 3 years and have taken the time to develop in a program, because that's what they do with these guys when they get here. They bring them along every single year. They almost run their own little college program. Like, you're a rookie. In many cases, you were on the bus between G League and the main roster. Then in that second year, you start to get more prominent minutes. And then the third year, you're a solid rotation guy. And then in the case of like Fred and Pascal, guys that are like top tier players who are now being paid big money. So I read that teams, when you draft one and done guys, there's always that pressure on these one and done guys to come in. And if they fail for whatever reason, teams don't want to. Teams are quick to give up on them. Whereas I think with like when you're drafting guys later, knowing that you're not expecting them to hit a home run right away, you can afford to be more patient with them, even if they are a little bit older.
So why would teams give up on those guys? I can understand not drafting them because you can make an argument that these guys have played in a couple of years, not being those top, prospects. So playing in a system for a couple of years, 3 years makes sense. They get polished. But if you're shipping someone to G League for the first year and, just bringing them in a little bit later, why would teams quickly give up on
one-and-done
guys?
When most one-and-done guys are lottery guys. You're excited about the youth and the upside, but you're also looking for immediate impact. And whereas when the Raptors draft a guy, because they're already a very good team, they don't have a problem putting a guy in the G League for a year or having him split time between the G League and the back of the main roster. They don't have an issue redshirting a guy and developing him. But like, we always see the player just not playing a lot, but the truth is that they're actually getting a lot of development time. Again, they're getting those G League minutes as well. And knowing that the expectation is lower because they weren't that top tier pick, you're willing to, hey, we're playing with house money anyways. We'll just put in the time. What do we have to lose?
This is like the Spurs strategy from years ago, where they didn't need anybody to come right in and have an immediate impact. They could afford, in some cases, to leave them in Europe, let them learn a little bit, and so I've been listening to I highly recommend this podcast if you're a soccer guy, if you're a U.S. soccer fan. I recommend it even more. It's about Freddie Adu. I don't know if you guys remember him. He was a phenom at the age of 14, and flamed out 15 years later. Had like 14 clubs in 15 years, or something crazy like that. And what ended up happening, when you kind of look at it and you listen to what they're saying, is he didn't have enough time to learn. Positionally, he wasn't able to grasp things. He had all the skill in the world, which is the same with some of these one and done guys. You can have all the skill in the world, but if you're not standing in the right spot and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing in a team construct, you're going to fail. You're useless to a team, especially when you have a general manager or a coach who's on a short leash anyways. So you can't afford to wait around for these guys to start producing at the level that you expect, because your job is on the line. So I think that's what happens with a lot of these guys is, a coach says, this guy's not helping me right now. I need to put in the next guy. Stanley Johnson, a guy on our roster, perfect example. All the physical attributes, he just doesn't, he's not able to put it together within the construct of the team. He's had many opportunities and he just hasn't been able to do it. And that's why I like their strategy of taking some of these guys who, like Malachi Flynn was a defensive player of the year and player of the year in his conference. Yes, some people may say it's not a top conference, but he still played against very good competition, and he was seasoned. He had all his years in college, and he learned. And that's the thing about him. They keep comparing him to like a Fred VanVleet type, where he's able to. It's his willingness to learn, his attitude, and that's the thing with some of these guys is that you're a lot of like you're missing that the key thing, which is being a gym rat and getting in there and wanting to learn and wanting to improve yourself, which the guys that the Raptors end up drafting always have this. Pascal, perfect example. Pascal, yeah, he had a terrible playoff last year. He knows it, and he's not scared to address that. He'll say it right in front of everybody, I had a terrible season, and I'm not happy with myself. And he's coming back this year. People were flaming him on Twitter saying, trade this guy. Are you kidding me? After one quarter in the preseason, people wanted this guy out. Like, where's your head? You can't give up on these guys because like Pascal was a late pick and he still panned out to something, and this guy is still going to improve. I have all the faith in the world in Pascal.
So let me ask this. Is it also because when you're someone who spent a couple of years at the college level, you're not a one and done guy, you kind of also know you're a little bit more realistic about your chances and what your role in the NBA might look like as well, right? I don't know. I'm just speculating here. Is it also because these guys probably feel that they can't take anything for granted? They're not expected to be those it guys. And maybe, you know what? I have to put this time in, and I'm open to the idea that I might start my career in G League.
That, and I think that's a big part of it. That they don't care. They want to play hard. I don't think that they play hard. They play smart. They don't take anything for granted because they may not have been like the sexy McDonald's All-American guys. They may not have been the sexy AAU players. And because they stayed in a program for an extended period, they actually learned the nuances of a program. Whereas a lot of other guys, the one and done guys, they get there for a year and they just want to get them to showcase themselves. I mean, not everybody. I mean, you have places like Kentucky where they one and done guys are just, it's the best place to be from a development standpoint, but their goal is to showcase themselves and get picked as highly as possible and get that money. Whereas a lot of these other guys have to learn the nuances of the game, learn about, as Ron said, knowing where to stand, where to move, what schemes to run when, and just instinctively getting it. That whereas a lot of the one and done guys got away with their pure athleticism. But when you get to the NBA, your brain is just as important. I mean, LeBron is a physical freak, but that guy has an IQ that's beyond anybody in the league. So it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and I saw, I don't know who it was. There was an ex-NBA player who made a comment about when players go down to the G League, guys that are down there, and this has happened in the past where, there's somebody who's lighting up the G League, scoring, 25 points per game, 30 points per game. These guys go down there and think that they have to be the man on the team. But when you think about it, when you're coming up to the NBA team, that's not your role. So some of these guys aren't able to understand that role. And the Raptors guys, Fred VanVleet, I remember seeing his first game in the G League. He understood what the Raptors needed him to be. Chris Boucher understood what the Raptors needed him to be. Like there's just an understanding with some of these guys where, there are guys who, have had everything handed to them where they think I'm going to be the man. But, reality is that you might not be the man when you get to the NBA. And the Raptors guys have a good understanding of that.
Mm-hmm. They work ethic, IQ, those can make, I think, as we learned, that can make up for just pure athleticism and talent. That said, I mean, if you get talent, you got to get it and take it because it's hard to find guys who can do certain things. But yeah, that's how they should remain competitive. And I mean, they've drafted so well. Like, name it since Messiah's, they've made the playoffs every year. Yeah, I mean, and it's not like there were no 8th seed years. They've been a top 4 team in the East every single year since 2013. You only have one player that's been here through the whole time, and that's Kyle Lowry. And they haven't signed any top-tier free agents. So how did they do that? It's by drafting and developing. And when they've traded their guys, like they got They got Marc Gasol in a package that included DeLon Wright. They got Kawhi in a package that included Pirtle, who I still think will be a very good player as a good defensive center. So they've kept the right guys. They've traded the right guys. Really, the only one that hadn't panned out is Bruno.